Hello, everyone. Hi, hello. Welcome to today's session of Macmillan Education Time. I am already reading all the comments. I can see lots of people saying buon pomeriggio. Hi, everybody. So today, before welcoming our speakers, I would like to remind you a couple of technical things. And while we wait for our speakers and just to try out the chat box, I would like to ask you where you're writing from. I am at the moment close to Monza. I live close to Monza. So let's see if there's someone close to me. Oh, there's somebody from Sardinia already. I can see. Hi, everybody. Let's see where we are and where we're writing from. So while we try out the chat box, okay, I see Treviso, Aosta, Turin, Rome, fantastic, everywhere. So I would like to remind you that you can have your attestati, the certificates, starting from tomorrow. So starting from the end of the session, you are going to see it on your profile on mondadorieducation.it/attestati. So this is the for the ones that follow us and have a look at our sessions. That's not a news actually, but I would like to remind every time for everybody in case there are new people coming and joining us today. So you're going to find the attestato, the certificate, on mondadorieducation.it/attestati. And even the recording will be available on the playlist and the website of Mondadori Education. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome our speaker for today. And Chris, hi, welcome. Chris Rowland. Okay, he's coming.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Chris, how are you?
I'm great, thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Fantastic. So today, Chris is going to speak about practical strategies related to reading. So he's going to present very soon. I just would like to introduce a little bit our speaker. So Chris is based actually in Spain, and I'm not sure how the weather is now in Seville. Chris, can you tell us?
Actually raining, would you believe?
Oh no, today it's raining. Okay. Here as well, it's not very good. I hope in the other parts of Italy the weather is better. And he's been collaborating with us for quite some time, so we are really happy. He's a teacher trainer, and he travels all around the world to give speeches and sessions. So I will be now here for you throughout the whole session. So if you need me in the comments, or if you need me helping out, I'll be happy to help. But now, Chris, the stage is yours, and I'll be here following. So thank you very much, and see you later.
Yeah, thank you very much, Romina. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you to Macmillan and everyone at Mondadori for inviting me today. It's really nice to be here. So we're going to look at strategies that will help your learners engage with the texts in your course book or any other text that you want to work with. My first point is that context matters. And to demonstrate that, I'm going to ask you to tell me what you think that is. Please feel free to type into the chat box what you think the image that I'm showing you there is. Julia, you think it's an island? Okay. Chiara thinks it's a mountain. Looks like a torn photograph. Julia, that's quite a good guess there. Yes. Maura thinks it's a painting. Hi, Giovanna. Catalina also thinks it's a painting. Sylvia, mountain peak. Okay, I'm going to show you a little bit more of it. Any more guesses now? You can see a little bit more. Antonella thinks it's a torn picture. And Elena's going with a mountain. Let's have a look. Here we go. Part of a screenshot. Yes, it is, Katerina. So it was that, but you see, I took away the context. A volcano, not most of the time, Alessandra. But with no context, it's very, very difficult, as it was there. Imagine if I'd given you the context. You can still see the same amount of the picture, but you have more of an idea of the bigger picture. And this is the principle that I'm working with here, is that sometimes when our students begin a text, if they don't have the bigger picture, if they don't have the context, immediately they feel a little bit disorientated. So the first part of the session is ideas, simple ideas, to provide your students with a bigger picture before they start reading the text, or very quickly while they're reading the text. Technique 1, and I think I've got about 20, maybe 30 techniques to show you today. I hope that they will be useful and you'll be able to start using them tomorrow in class. So technique 1 is to give your learners a quick spoken overview in Italian before they start reading. So let's imagine that we're reading a text. I think it's from Unit 6 of Upskill, about somebody who invents a device to put in the canes of the visually impaired. We could start the lesson before our students even see the text. We say to them in Italian, this is my attempt at Italian, Ehi ragazza, ascolta, leggeremo un testo su una ragazza che ha inventato un dispositivo per aiutare una nonna cieca. Immediately, even the lowest level learner in your class, they know what they're about to read. I don't know if you understood any of that, by the way, but that was my attempt. What we've done is we've just given them all ding, 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 like that, the bigger picture. Then we ask them to turn to the page. Now, at least everybody knows more or less where we're going. I've put that there, so that'll be a little reminder for you when you look at these slides or the presentation later as to this technique. What else we can do, hello people arriving now, is we can rattle out a word-for-word translation into Italian as a listening only, again, before they even open the book. I do this, I'm based in Seville, I work with Spanish learners. So the way I would do it, for example, if I was working this text, I might say, okay, guys, don't open your books, which is a little bit of reverse psychology because they're used to us saying, open your books, open your books. Don't open your books. If I see anybody opening their books, I'll stop. This is a lightning quick listening. I'm just going to tell you what this text means. For me, I would say to my students in Spanish, and then you can work with it. So I'm looking, like I say, the moment I see anyone turning to the text trying to write down answers, I shall stop speaking. Cuando Ria Caramancha tenía como 14 años, Se dio cuenta mirando la abuela de su amiga, que era ciega, que estaba tropezando con cosas, con mesas, con objetos alrededor de la casa. And we can do that very, very quickly, even before they open the page. And then we say, okay, now turn to the page. Already, all of your learners, they know more or less where we're going. We haven't cheated, although it's not maybe traditional methodology. Or it is, but it's turned on its head. But now all your students know what's going to happen. They have an idea of where the text is going, even if they're struggling with some of the words. Then they can start to look at the words. They can start to map those words to the schema that they've got in their head from you explaining. If you really don't want to use Italian in class, if you've been trying for the last 10, 20, 30 years not to use Italian in class, or you feel that they already use too much Italian in class, well, then we can use a simplified summary in English before they read it. So we have something like this. We say, okay, people, don't open your book, and we tell them in English. Ria Carumancia invented something to help people who can't see. And we give them a very short synopsis in English. Again, though, it's another way of delivering the bigger picture before we start reading the text. Another thing we can do is, if we have more time, we can take a text and then we can simplify it into a simpler English, and we can use that to give to our struggling learners, the learners in the class with a lower level. So, for instance, let's imagine that this is our target text. This is a text that I've invented for the purposes of working with it in this session. So the text goes, having bet his friends that he could go 3 months without once washing his hair, Brian went on to abstain from using shampoo for another 2 years. In fact, he avoided not only shampoo, but a whole range of commercial cleansers, including soap, shower gel, skin cream, and hand sanitizer. I'm going to ask you now, what items, what words or phrases or structures in there do you think would give your weaker learners problems? What are the most difficult bits of English in that text? Again, if you'd like to answer me using the chat box. Hello, Sylvia. Hello, Daniela, and hello, Costanza. Is there anything in that text that jumps out at you that sets your spider sense tingling because your weaker learners would struggle with it? Katerina says abstain from. Yes, abstain is quite a old-fashioned verb, isn't it? Bet, okay, yep. Bet sometimes, yeah. It's on the irregular verbs list, isn't it? But bet. Yeah, still, they see it, but they're often not familiar with it. Avoid, says Antonella. Thank you. Julia, having bet. Yes, that construction. Yep. Having bet, Adele. Thank you. Okay, I'll take 2 more. Anything else there? I think you've got the really juicy ones. The word abstain, says Elisa. A whole range, Sylvia. Yes. I can picture myself explaining that, as I have done hundreds of times. I think the word range. I use gamma in Spanish for my students. I give them a straight translation, but we could say selection, couldn't we, as well? Went on to Sylvia, nice one. Yes. Yeah, it's a slightly more old-fashioned way of saying continue, isn't it? Thank you for that. So I think the ones that I've identified are very similar to the ones you have. So what we can do is we can reformulate. Again, if we have time, we can reformulate key paragraphs and just take out the difficult language. So if we have struggling learners, we can provide them with a more simplified text. And then if they want to, they can move to the more complicated text after that. But they've still got the essence of the text there. Obviously, we don't have time to prepare the perfect lesson every lesson, but this is an option to simplify our own texts. And I think it's better if we do it because we know our learners rather than asking a program to take out the language, which we only have to check again. Technique 5 is what I call a sentence grab. And I use this for when a text contains not necessarily difficult words, but concepts and real life experiences that my learners might not have had much contact with. Let me give you an example. So here we've got a text about Naruto the macaque who took the selfie, and then the photographer that was working with him used the selfie, and if you know the story, and an animal rights group decided that the selfie and the copyright belonged to the macaque monkey rather than to the wildlife photographer. Looking at this text, I think understanding the whole text really hinges on understanding the idea of copyright. If we start reading the text and one of our learners doesn't really understand what copyright is anyway, then their understanding of the bigger picture is going to be more difficult. It's going to be negatively affected. So what we do is, before we start with the text, we don't necessarily even show the class the text. We say, people, can you get out your mobiles? Yes, you can use your mobiles for the next activity. I'd like you all to go to Wikipedia. I'd like you to find an interesting, hello Anna, and hello Viola, an interesting sentence about copyright. And I want you then to tell us what your sentence is, to share it with the class. So I'm going to ask those of you who are actually on, that should say those there, let us slip up there, those of you that are on laptops and can easily access Wikipedia from where you are, I'm going to ask you to go to Wikipedia, the entry in English on copyright, to find a nice sentence about copyright. Doesn't have to be the first one, doesn't even have to be a definition, but a useful detail, and then to paste that sentence into the chat box so we can all see it. When I do this with students, I ask them to copy their sentence into their notebooks, but I tell them that they have to understand what the sentence means, at least by the time they finished copying it. So they don't just copy any sentence. And the fact that they have to copy the sentence out means they don't, if you ask them online to copy and paste, they might do a whole paragraph. But if they have to copy it out, they're quite selective. So can you guys provide me with some interesting sentences from the Wikipedia entry about copyright? Elisa, copyright is intended to protect the original expression of an idea in the form of a creative work, but not the idea itself. I like that one. So you've been, if I remember rightly, you've been selective. You haven't chosen the first sentence or the third. I think that's from the second paragraph or the fourth or fifth sentence. That's a really nice one. And that encapsulates what copyright is. Again, we could ask a couple of students to read out their sentences to the class. And then we could ask another student to explain what that meant, or even the student who's read it out, because they've spent time with the sentence. Sylvia, the legal right to control the production and selling of a book, play, film, photograph, or a piece of music. Great. Again, this would be giving our students a bigger picture before they start with the main reading. Type of intellectual property, Patricia, that gives its owner the exclusive legal right to copy, distribute, adapt, display, and perform a creative work, usually for a limited time. Beautiful. Thank you very much, guys. So then, once the class has done that, we go to another concept. If we look at this text, I think another context. Oh, Adele, that's a nice, succinct, the exclusive and assignable legal right given to the originator of a text. That's a nice one. I think also the guardian. Again, this is world knowledge, not necessarily vocabulary. They might not know what the guardian is. So we send them off. I'm not going to ask you to do this because I think you get the idea. We send them back to Wikipedia to find a sentence about the Guardian, because they might not know that it is one of the UK's leading newspapers. To them, it's just a word, the Guardian, although it says newspaper. But again, we're filling in background knowledge. And we might do this 3 times. We might choose to do it with macaque as well. Although in Upskill, there's quite a lot of visual support there because it's got a picture of the monkey and it's got some explanation of macaques right in the center there. And we might decide to do it with sued. Again, the book's authors have noticed that that's an important word. But again, we're filling in details, background information. Hello, Anna, good afternoon. And then we start the reading, and our students have filled in a lot of world knowledge. Again, if we were using this text, this is the double text, the girl who invents the cane, and another invention here from Isha Kari, who's from California. Maybe for some of your students, California is just a word. So again, getting them to go to Wikipedia, having a look, actually seeing where California is, realizing it's on sort of that side of the states and that it's a state. You could even get them to look for the University of California to fill in some background. So whenever you have a text and you think that the background knowledge to the text is quite important to appreciating the text, you have the option of a Wikipedia grab. Now then, if a Wikipedia grab is a little bit wordy for you, you could ask them to retrieve images, which they could do from Wikipedia or they could do from the internet in general. So instead of finding a sentence about copyright, they have to choose an image. And then they have to show the image to the partner and then briefly explain the image to the class. You might choose, 2, 3, 4 people to explain what image they've chosen for each one and to show anybody else who's interested. I call that a picture grab technique. And for this text, that might give us something like that. That's actually the 1870 Copyright Act there. It's a front page from The Guardian, and that's an Indian macaque monkey there. So again, what we're doing is we're giving the students pictures in their head in terms of context that they can bring to their reading, which will help them as they're reading, because then they can associate the words and phrases in English that they're reading with the mental pictures in their head. Part of the bigger picture, giving them context. Another option we've got is to show our students a related video first. Now, I think decades and decades ago, what coursebook authors sometimes used to do was kind of invent stories because there was no internet, there was no way of checking them. However, these days, the stories that you find in your coursebooks are based on reality. So we can send our learners to watch a clip, or we can select a clip, show it to the class first, and then do the reading. Now, I've been teaching for quite a long time, and I think most teachers of my generation, we have a certain way of thinking, one sort of blueprint, one default setting that we have is that we think, okay, if there's a reading and there's a YouTube clip about the reading, we'll do the reading first, and then we'll show them the YouTube clip for 2 reasons. One, because showing them the clip at the end is a kind of treat. It's nice, it's easier. And 2, showing them the clip before is cheating. Well, I don't think it is cheating, to be honest, guys, because we're actually making the reading task easier. And there's a difference between cheating and making life easier and increasing comprehension. So I would say let's flip the script, show them the clip first. And actually, listening to a clip, we think it's easy, but if you're listening closely, the actual listening task is often more difficult than the reading task. So it's not necessarily, giving them the easy thing first. Once they've watched the clip, they are in a much better place to understand the text. And remember, the whole point of the lesson, of us doing the reading lesson with them, is for them to understand that text. So if at the end of it, they understand that text better, however we manage to get them there, it doesn't matter. It's been a successful lesson. So let's go back to our monkey. If we go on to YouTube, and I think the monkey is in Unit 6, if I'm right. So hopefully some of you using Upskill will still not have got there, and you might be able to use these techniques. There are lots and lots of options. The first option called Panda is a bit more of a kind of robot-y voice. The second one is an excerpt on a morning news program. We could show them any one of these, and we are priming our learners in terms of context and understanding, ready to work with our text. And again, the more they understand of the text before they start reading, the better place they are in to understand the difficult words in the text that the text is a vehicle for. What we can also do, if we want to, because as you know, if we just play our learners an audio or a video and we don't give them a task, some of them might not pay attention. So what I like to do is first I play them the video with nothing. I say, watch it, enjoy it, because I do think that sometimes we take in more when we don't have the task as distractor. But the second time, yes, we give them a task. The task might be, here is a grid. We frame it as bingo. Here is a grid. As you're listening to the clip, I want you to write down, what have we got? 12 words that appear in the listening that you think might appear in the reading text that we're going to do on the same subject later. No, don't open your book. No, that's cheating. And so as they listen to the video clip before they do the reading, they are predicting words that they think will appear in the reading. Now, going back to, I think, this clip here, some words that a learner might think will appear are these. They all appear in that clip. And then once everybody has filled in their bingo, and we can put the subtitles on for the clip if we want. Obviously, we warn them, sometimes subtitles on clips are not exactly accurate. Then we do the reading, and as they go, they can tick off any of the words that they predicted would appear in the text from the listening. So we've given them a reason to listen. We've given them a reason to read and pay attention to the words. And now, hopefully, we have a class that is much more engaged with the text that we're showing them. Okay, so I have shown you 10 techniques for providing context for a text. My question to you all is, which of those techniques did you like the most? Or are there any of those techniques that you can see yourself using that are not too far from what you already do and might be useful in your context? That's over to you. I'll give you a second to type your thoughts into the chat box. Patricia, the video and the bingo before the video. Right. Yes. And I've done it as a list, just a simple list. So if you think bingo is going to get them too excited, but in general, it works really nicely. Adele, the video, rock and roll. Sylvia, the Wikipedia sentence grab is very interesting. Yes, it is. It needs a little bit of managing carefully to get everybody looking for the same thing. And my advice is only to do 3 items or 4 maximum, just to give them the conceptual background. Never used Wikimara, but it's a good idea. Thank you. Adriana, the video, which is something I do, and the bingo is a great idea. Rock and roll. Technique 3 and 4, Kiara. They were the quick translations and the simplified summaries, yes? Antonella, video first when possible, or keywords activity, rock and roll. And there's a video on nearly everything. Now, I think coursebook writers write with a lot of integrity in terms of having one eye on, making sure what they're saying is actually true. So you can find what they're talking about and authenticate it in the real world, which is good because we're dealing with a generation that, they see something and think, nah, that's made up. And then it turns out that it isn't. They're all useful. Carmela, thank you very much. Patricia, I asked them to look for difficult words before reading. Yes, that is just taking that idea a little bit further. Adele, if we don't have a video related to the video reading, don't do the video. There are lots of other techniques that I'll show you. So yeah. Or you could just, if you have some information, you could tell them about it. Or you could use an online, you could use Wikipedia or another online source. Sylvia, the video. Catalina, video pictures of keywords of the reading. Rock and roll. Okay. Pina says listening without reading, then video after bingo. It's a great idea. Pleased you like it. Thank you, people. Some questions for you. Does telling your students what a text means in their first language feel like cheating? Do you, could you, or would you ever do it? And do you use any other techniques? I've jumped the third question to help your students understand the context of a reading passage. Maura, I sometimes scramble the title of the reading and let them unscramble the words to get the right title. That's nice. So you're priming them, and maybe once you've done that as well, a little bit of conjecture. Yeah, what do you think that the text is going to be about from there? Nice. I'll take a couple of answers from these questions, and then we'll have a look at some more techniques. Patricia, no, I wouldn't, because they are supposed to use English in class as much as possible. That's the translating. Now then, I think that's an interesting point, and I completely understand that perspective. What I think is, if we use, in your case, Italian, if we know why we're using it in the exact moment we're using it, I think that's different to using it as a last resort. So I kind of use, when I'm teaching my students, I kind of use Spanish strategically. But if anybody asked me or came into the lesson and said, why are you speaking Spanish? I could tell them exactly why I was doing it in that moment. So I think maybe the level of intentionality and strategy. But yes, you're right. And there is a counter argument that whenever we use our students' first language, we are depriving them of hearing English in that instance. So there's a constant balancing act. Adriana, I usually provide a summary in English, and if they don't understand, I give them some keywords and ask high level for translation. Oh, that's nice. So you probably give the keywords in Italian, yeah? Okay. Adriana, I try to use English as much as possible, but sometimes translation is necessary. Yes, I don't know if you the L1 sandwich is an idea where we give them the word, we say the word in English first, but then we translate it into their first language, then we say it in English again, and that could actually be extended to whole sentences. So the first thing they hear is English, the second thing they hear is Italian, the third thing they hear is English again. So the translation, the L1 translation, is sandwiched between a lot of English. That's the first and last thing they hear. That's a nice little technique as well. And I use pictures from the text to help their comprehension. Yes, and there are actually in upskill, there are lots of nice pictures and there's a lot of support on the page. So we need to make the most of it. And Anna uses keywords. Thank you very much, people. Let's have a look at penetrating text. So we move on from context to actually getting in there and understanding the text. I'd like to talk to you about the idea, what I call an as-you-go comprehension. So this is a text about Brighton. I don't know if any of you know it. Veronica, if there are photos that can be useful to ask questions to introduce a topic, absolutely they can. And you can do so much contextualization with those photos, yeah? Patricia, the textbooks are full of useful pictures. They are increasingly so, I think, as well, that give clues. Elena, I agree with you there. So in the past, I mean, over the, hundreds, thousands, and maybe not hundreds of thousands, but hours that I've spent in rooms with teenagers trying to get them to read texts, sometimes the whole thing is just a little bit painful because they've been in the class for 5 hours already, and we're trying to get them to read the text, to get their heads down. Sylvia, if you've never thought about using Italian to give them a quick spoken overview, and you have now, it makes me happy. Thank you. And it isn't cheating. I agree with you. So we want to imagine we've got a class of, 12, 13-year-olds. We want them to get their heads down and just read it. We need to get through the text, but it's a hot day in May. They're tired. We're tired. This technique, the as-you-go comprehension, is a quick way. Now, here is the text. And we say, people, look at the first line of the text. Look at the title. And then we make up questions as we go. We say, what's Brighton's surname? And the students say, hands in the air. Yeah. Zona. Yes, exactly. Okay. So what's Brighton's initials? What, teacher? What's Brighton's initials? BZ. Yes, correct. Who is 17? Another student puts their hand up. Brighton. Yes. And where does Brighton live? USA. Yes. Very good. What does she do in the evenings? Another student puts her hand up. She does homework. Yes. What else does she do? She listens to music. Yes. Who does she like? She likes Beyonce. Yes. Can you see what we're doing? We're making up the questions chronologically, and we're just leading the students through the text, but they're reading it for the first time with you, the teacher, in that moment. And they realize, oh, I have to look at the next. What I found is the classic way of doing things is beautiful, it's fine. And on this particular text, with this particular text, there is the text. On the next page, there are 3 sets of exercises of questions, but that's the classic way, and it takes time. They have to read the text, look away from the text, come back. This way, everybody looks at the text, and you just drag them through the text, and you are inventing the questions as you go. If you're not as confident inventing the questions as you go, then you can actually have a look and just write a few questions, on a post-it note before the lesson. But I think it's quite easy to rephrase the questions, and with practice, actually, it gets easier and easier. And that suddenly you'll find the class is surprised, and they come to the end of the text. It's like, wow, we've read the text with you. It just takes the pain out of the text a little bit. So that's an as-you-go comprehension. And by the way, if we're talking about Brighton's Ilna, to illustrate the last point, here are some YouTube clips about her. So again, if any of you are covering her, you could show your students those clips before they start the reading. Now we have the concept of loctation. I adapted this from dictation. Dictation is an activity where we give them a list of words. We read the words out, as you know, and if you're doing a dictation as a student, the teacher says a word, you either know it or you don't. If you don't know it, you're lost. You have to put a question mark or have a guess of something that you know is bad and then wait for the corrections. So you don't really learn anything until the corrections, and then maybe not. If you know it, you already know it. So I see dictations as a kind of lose-lose situation. However, if we give our students the text first, and this could be any text you want to work with, including a paragraph from a reading you're going to do, and then we say, okay, people, I would like you to circle a word in the text in line 1 that means conosciuto come, and hopefully, and then number it 1, and hopefully they're doing this. And then we say, okay, I'd like you to look at line 2. I'd like you to circle a word that means the same as kind or type. Thank you, Patricia. There, all the synonyms, yes, absolutely, Adele. Then we say to them, okay, now look at line 3. I would like you to find a word, circle it and number it number 3. That means the same as grosso modo. I think that's my favorite word in Italian. I learned that night before last, preparing this session. And hopefully they're doing this. My point here is, if they don't know the words, they have a fighting chance and they have context. And so it's more effective than a dictation. I call it loctation because there's a place where they can do it from. Approximately. Yes, they could also do that. They could go for approximately as well on the next line. Totally. And then, you know, next word, circle a word that means largo. They've got a chance of learning from this, and we're preparing the text that they're about to read. So this is actually doing several things. And you can do that with any text that you're about to read. You can pick a paragraph and give them a loctation from it, and you're preparing the difficult words from that. And you can use translation, or as Patricia said, you could, or Adele said, you can use synonyms in English, and they're looking for that. Either way, you're helping them prepare the text. It's a kind of pre-teaching. Next technique, we could ask, this is particularly good if we've got an artistic or literary text, but we can ask students to color code a text. So for instance, let's say we've got this short text here, and we can present them, that's the same text. We can just copy and paste it from the digital book. And then we ask them to read each sentence and underline each sentence with a color that to them represents that sentence, a color they associate with the sentence as a whole. I tend to use this with younger learners, with tweens, 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds. And so they're marking up the text. Obviously, it works better if you give them the text on paper. Then what we can do is put them in pairs and ask them to talk about why they chose to underline those lines in those colors. Obviously, we have to explain to them there's no right or wrong. This is all about personal interpretation. Again, what we're doing here is giving them an entry point into the text. And we can provide them with a script afterwards. So why did you choose grey for this sentence? I chose grey because it's about scientists and research, and they do work in laboratories, and I was thinking about the benches all being silver. Okay. And then they switch, and the other student says, so why did you choose, let's imagine their partner also chose orange for that. Why did you choose orange for this sentence? Well, I chose orange because it said before the year 2000, and that's really old. And I always associate anything with before the year 2000 with hippies, and hippies are orange, for example. Why did you choose pink for this sentence? Well, it said people, and I thought people, a lot of them are pink. I was like, oh, okay. Why did you choose black for video? And they're talking about their association. So again, we're providing an entry point in the sentences. I tell your students do that on their own. You must have fantastic students. That's great. If you've got younger students, 10, 11s, or if you're working individually with students that are struggling, what you can do is something I've done in the past. Prepare a text, leave really big gaps, and then give them colours and get them to put their thumbprints in paint and actually put a thumbprint in the colour that they think each sentence should be, which is quite a nice little activity. Obviously, if you're getting the paints out, it gets a bit messy, it takes longer. So this is, it's kind of reading art. Let's go a little bit more experimental now. If we take a text and we insert square brackets, we can then provide our students with a key, and we can ask them, I want you to read each sentence, and at the end, I want you to put in a little code. If you put in 100%, that means you understand the sentence 100%. If you put a smiley, it means there might be a word you don't understand, but you basically get the gist of the sentence. If you put in a question mark, you're not sure about it. And if you put a WH question mark, exclamation mark, that means you understand nothing about the text. Now, obviously what we have to do is copy and paste the text, and then we have to insert the little square brackets into the text. So that takes a little while. But again, if you have to react to a sentence, that means you have to engage with it. So the point of doing this is we give our students an entry point into every sentence. And then once they've done that, we can go through the text. We can ask, okay, so who got 100% for this one? Okay, any, WHs? And it gives us a way to break down the text. We can put them in pairs. We can say, work with a partner. See if you can help your partner turn any WH question marks into smiley faces. The whole principle here is, again, if you have to react to a sentence, you've had to engage with the sentence. So yes, it takes a little longer to prepare, but it actually helps you engage and it makes the lesson easier. That's the understanding index. We can also, if we're doing writing or if they're reading literature or they're reading a story, we could give them an interest index. So here's the text. This is purpose written for the session. If it's a very interesting sentence that makes you want to read more and might be the high point of the story, you give it a 3 or a 2. If it's a really bad sentence that's so boring it makes your head want to fall off, you give it a -3. I'm going to ask you guys, what would you give that sentence? The branch manager recoiled in horror. How interesting is that sentence for you in this short text? You can just type in a number if you want. Sylvia says it's a 2. It's quite interesting. Makes you want to read why. Okay. Sylvia, Lori or Iori? She's giving it a 2. Alyssa is giving it a 2. Catalina is giving it a 2. Gemma's giving it a 2. Okay, we like that sentence. What about the next sentence? So we've got the mere logic of the calculations on Pete's balance sheet was enough to bring out the veins at his temples. What rating are you giving that one? Patricia's giving it a 2, or that might be the last sentence. Okay, so Patricia, you're going down. You find that sentence a little bit, okay, that's a bit of a slump there. Okay, Sylvia, again, you're finding that a little bit more. Okay, so we've been interesting. Now, maybe not so interesting for you. So the reader's at risk of losing your engagement. Anna, you find it, okay, you're still on a 2 there. So it's It's leveling out. Okay, we can do this with our students, and we can go through and ask them to write down how much they're engaging or how much they find interesting. And if we use a short text, and this is especially good if we're going to get them to do writing afterwards, we can then ask them to plot how interesting the story was. What kind of a story was it? Was it a story with a steady increase of tension? Was it a story that went up and down, had interesting, boring bits? Again, this gets them thinking about text in a more advanced way as the writer engaging the reader. Okay, we've got time for a few ideas on processing text. One thing we can do, once our students have read the text, when they've answered the questions, when we've gone over the difficult words, we can put them in pairs and we can ask them to work with the text. So this is an invented text for the purposes of exemplification. Student 1 reads the first line and changes a word. So the original text is, before Bilbo entered the cave, the dwarves asked him to steal the Arkenstone. And the student has said, before Bilbo entered the cave, the dwarves asked him to take the Arkenstone. Again, if you've changed something, you've had to engage with the text and think about it. Their partner then reads the next line. Instead of Smaug was sleeping when Bilbo first arrived, the partner says Smaug was having a rest when Bilbo first arrived. So now they're working with the text that they thoroughly understand, but they're doing something with it to reinforce and consolidate the language. Another thing we can get them to do is read to each other and add something to each sentence. So, same text. Partner 1 says, before Bilbo entered the cave, the dwarves asked him to steal the Arkenstone, and they add on, because it was originally theirs. The partner reads the next sentence. Smaug was sleeping when Bilbo first arrived, under some treasure. Again, if they're actually embellishing the text, they've had to engage with the text, and now because they're doing something with it, there's more of a chance that they will retain the language that the text is a vehicle for. They could read to each other using eyes up. This is a technique where they have the text down here. First student looks at the text. Before Bilbo entered the cave, the dwarves asked him to steal the Arkenstone. Then they look up and they read it to their partner, but they have to be looking into their partner's eyes when they read, not at the text. They can look down as many times as they want to remember, but they actually have to retain the information in their head and then launch it at their partner. That can be quite a lot of fun. Another thing we can do is, if we ask our students to write the answers to the comprehension questions in a book in full sentences, then at the end, what we've got is we've got the questions and the answers, and they can read the two together like a radio podcast interview, because we've prepared a role play. They've got the original questions from the book, and they've got their full sentence answers that they prepared. So that's a final activity, which again provides some consolidation. So here we have a swimming star. This is the exercise. This actually says use no more than 4 words in the book. I would say, yes, use more than 4 words. In fact, I would tell them use the golden rule. And the golden rule is make sure that each of your answers contains more words than the question it addresses. So the answer has to be longer than the question. I use that for speaking activities in general in class. So these are the answers that a student has prepared. Then one student has the questions, the original questions. One student has the answers, and they just role play it. That role play is basically for free because we've done all the hard work, but it's a really nice final activity for consolidation. Technique 20. We can ask our students to convert a text or a dialogue or a story into a comic book format. So again, in the transformation, they're having to engage with the language and find the meaning. this is actually a text which my students adapted from a very old German story, which I'm not sure I have here on my shelves. It's called Straw Peter. It's about a boy who sucked his thumb and got his thumbs cut off. Bit gruesome. It's an old sort of children's fairy story. Again, though, if you're having your students convert a text into a comic, you need to establish some parameters. For example, in each box, there will be at least 2 sentences of text or 2 short speech bubbles and 1 sentence of narration at the bottom. You might need to think about how you're going to do that. Otherwise, you get your students just drawing for 30 minutes and not producing so much. And once they've done that, they can read their comics to a partner. Again, they're reworking the text. Or we can get our students to reconstruct a text with illustrations. So this is a text, a story from a book, and the students looked for images and replaced some of the keywords with some images that they sent me. I printed off, and then they created their posters. If you don't want to go to the trouble of having to print off images, have them send you images, you can ask them to pictograph a whole text. So this is a more advanced text, and the students have represented the text in pictographic form. And once they finish that, the important thing is that they follow up. We put them with another group, and the students who have created, for example, this text, they stand there and they recreate the text. They retell the text from their pictures to the other group. So again, they've read it, they've processed it, they've represented it, and then they've reconstructed it afterwards. So lots of processing there. If you don't want to get into drawing, but you like the idea of reconstruction, you could do something like this. We give our students a code. We say, I want you to write down keywords from the text. If it's a short sentence, you write down 1 keyword. If it's a medium sentence, you write down a maximum of 3 keywords. And if it's a really, really, really long sentence, you're allowed to write down 5 keywords. But it's up to you and your discretion. It's not a fixed, immutable set of parameters. So we'd have something like this. This student has written 17 because the first sentence is very short. The next sentence is longer. So they've written down student, homework, and music. The next sentence, she likes Beyonce. They've just written down Beyonce. Then what we do when they've prepared their post-it, normally for a paragraph, not a whole text, they close their books and they retell what they can remember of the text using their post-it to their partner. It's a basic reconstruction activity using a post-it note that I have used hundreds of times in the classroom with all levels. And it can be very effective. Again, it gives them something to do with the text once we've worked the text in the conventional way. Now we're coming up to 5 o'clock. I think I can continue for 5 minutes. Let me know, Romina, if that's not possible. And that. Otherwise, I shall continue just for 5 more minutes.
Okay, Chris, 5 minutes is fine.
Thank you.
We only have 5 minutes, though.
Okay, just 5 minutes. Patricia, reconstruction, thanks, Romina. Reconstruction does take up time, but I think it's very productive time. And if we can, I think it's better to get them to really process a text well, rather than do 2 texts and then forget them both. Okay, so, in fact, I've come to the end anyway, so that's perfect. People, my contact is Gmail here. Don't be shy. If you have any questions about any of the ideas, get in touch with me. And my YouTube channel, where I talk about all aspects of teaching teenagers, that is there. That's Teaching Teenagers English. You can zap the screen with a QR code, or you can just type into YouTube Teaching Teenagers English. If you like the site, what do we say? please subscribe. Subscribe does not require any commitment or or any money. Leave a comment or hit the like or share it with a friend. Okay, let's have 2 minutes of questions if anybody has any questions, and then I think that brings us nicely to the end of our session.
Okay, here we are. Super. Thank you, Chris. Thank you very much. It was extremely interesting. Now I can see some comments here and there. Let's see if we have a couple of minutes for questions. So during the talk, I just looked at some questions, and there were some of them that you anyway answered during your talk. But I have a couple. I have, let's say, taken notes of a couple.
Yep.
So one is about the reading art, which is actually really interesting. I mean, it's something that really goes beyond the mere reading activity, and it also connects colors and psychology to the reading task. So my question, that is just out of curiosity, is that if you've used it with your students and what the effects were if you've done that kind of activity with them.
Yes, I've used it. In fact, I've used it from all sort of levels of artistic. So I've had paints out and the entire class sort of painting and thumbprinting and that, which obviously they love, but you have to keep them moving along, you know, come on, read the text. And also, I think that the key thing is getting them to talk about why they chose a particular color.
The one about the thumbs, it just stuck in my mind.
And I've used that with all levels. I've used it right up to advanced. But I'd like to mention very briefly a teacher recently, a Portuguese teacher. I was sharing this activity and she took this into her class and used it. And there was a text and there was a place mentioned in a text, and one of her students underlined the place. It was a sunny place. I can't remember where, but he underlined it in grey. And then she said, when they were going over what, you know, he said, I did it in grey. She said, why did you underline that in grey? He said, because that's the colour of their football team's strip. And he was thinking sideways. So it's a really nice way to I think, to give an entry point to a text.
Fantastic. And I can see another question now asking about the slides. So
I can share the slides. Yeah. Sorry, Romina.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Because I will add just a couple of details regarding this. You will find them in the same section of your website. So where you can find your certificate, then since Chris said yes, you can also find the slides over there. So thank you very much, everyone. I
Romina, they have a recording as well, don't they?
And you also have the recording, exactly. So you are going to have the recording as well on the YouTube in the playlist, Mondadori playlist, Mondadori Education, playlist. So you're going to have the certificate, the slides, and the recording. And I am looking now at the chat just for final comments and questions, but I can see lots of thank yous. So thanks again, Chris. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody,
Romina,
for being here today. Sorry, Chris, did you say something?
No, thank you very much to you. Thanks.
Thanks. So if there are no questions, then we have used up our 5 minutes that we have. So thanks again, everybody. Bye, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. And I hope to see you soon with Chris and other speakers as well for the next session of, the next part, actually, of our events that will be in the second semester. So thank you very much and see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye. Enjoy. Bye.